which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. If you wish to speak during the public hearing or citizen comment period, please sign up on one of the sheets in the back of chambers. Item 2 is the adoption of the meeting agenda. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved. Second.
Okay, I will say, Mr. Wood, thank you for that motion. Do I have a second? Thank you, Mr. Allen. Any discussion? All in favor of approving the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the agenda is approved, 5-0. Item 3 is matters from mayor. I don't have anything this evening, so I'll move on to item 4, which is matters from our council members. Does anybody have anything they have this evening they'd like to share? Okay, short and sweet. Item 5 is consideration of the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the items on the consent agenda? Thank you, Mr. Allen. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Short. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the consent agenda is passed, 5-0. Moving on to item 6, and that's to consider adopting the budget calendar for the fiscal year 2025 budget process, and I'm going to call on Mr. Hamp.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Madam Mayor. The calendar in your packet is the work of our Assistant City Manager for Finance, Cameron McCormick. Couple reminders, it does conform with the requirements established in the city charter and the Code of Virginia, and it does reflect a schedule that will satisfy obligations on the part of the school board. A couple of key dates to draw your attention to this evening. First, this Thursday at 6 p.m. in the council chambers, we'll have sort of a second retreat session that will absolutely be focused on the budget. And then on March 20th at 7 p.m. here in the council chambers, you will receive city manager's recommended budget. And then other key dates, you can see there a date by which the superintendent must furnish the council the recommended budget for the schools, and then public hearings, introduction of ordinances, and then finally, hopefully, we'll adopt a budget on May 13th. As a reminder, as always, we can be flexible with dates and work sessions as we get closer to those dates and understand what folks' work obligations are. We would like the council to acknowledge and adopt the calendar this evening if you were so inclined to do so.
Okay, are there any questions or comments regarding the budget calendar? No? Okay, is there a motion to adopt the budget calendar as presented by Mr. Hamp?
So moved.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Short. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. Any discussion? All in favor of adopting the budget calendar, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And we have adopted the calendar 5-0.
Thank you.
Item 7 is to hold a public hearing and consider adopting an ordinance appropriating $4 million to the Water Fund for construction of a raw water tank. And I will call on Mr. McCormick at this time.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council. The ordinance in front of you this evening was introduced, seconded, and discussed at your February 12th meeting. The reason that it didn't carry to the consent agenda this evening and will have its own separate item is because it does need a public hearing, and due to the timing of being able to place those ads, we weren't able to get that in time for the previous meeting. It was publicly noticed in the News Virginian on 2/17 of this year. And just as a reminder, the funds for this are ARPA funds, and that position of the water tank, the raw water tank was identified as an eligible use of American Rescue Plan Act funds, as well as a critical project for the water system. The city has solicited and received bids, and this ordinance will fund final construction. If council has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them now. If not, you can hold the public hearing and adopt the ordinance this evening, if council desires.
Are there any questions? No? Okay. I hereby open the public hearing. Mr. Hamp?
No one has signed up to speak.
Okay. I hereby close the public hearing. This ordinance was introduced and properly seconded at the previous meeting. Are there any questions or discussion? If not, I will call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that passes 5-0. Item 8 is to consider adopting resolutions designating certain areas in the city as revitalization areas for the purposes of low-income housing tax credit project applications. Ms. Tate.
Hi, good evening, Mayor and members of City Council. The city has been approached by two different developers, Enterprise Community Development and also Woda Cooper companies that are interested in making applications for low-income housing tax credit projects. So there are two separate locations that I will be going over. The first is 1030 Alston Court, and that is tax map 51-12-6A. And this project would be for approximately, I believe, 96 apartment units. And you can see it's off of Rosser, off of Alston Court, in between Rosser and Alston Court, near the Waynesboro Marketplace development. The second proposal for a revitalization area designation, the address is 1008 B Street, and it represents tax map parcels 37-2-19, 37-2-20, 37-8-4, and 37-5-7. And you can see those outlined in red on this map. As far as the zoning, the projects comply to the existing zoning. Both properties are already zoned for multifamily development. This is a map representing the 1030 Alston Court project, and you can see that there is adjacent multifamily zoning and adjacent multifamily development, and also highway business zoning, and then residential zoning as well. This shows the zoning of the 1008 B Street property, again, zoned for multifamily development with surrounding multifamily zoning, some limited business zoning, and then across the street, RG5 residential zoning. The comprehensive plan designations for these areas are shown here on this map. This is the Alston Court property, and it is designated in the comprehensive plan for high-density residential, so the zoning does match the future land use map and the proposed project at this location. The other property at 1008 B Street is actually designated for medium-density residential instead of high-density residential, but I do point out that, our land use map has some significant age, and that the current zoning of the property, the current entitlements are for multifamily development and high-density residential development. So the applicants are each working on an application to apply for low-income housing tax credits through Virginia Housing. And if successful, it would lead to the development of multifamily housing that is affordable to low to moderate income individuals and families. In order to help those applications compete at the state level, they do receive additional points if a locality has designated the area of the project as a revitalization area. And the revitalization area is defined specifically in Virginia code, and it kind of has two different qualifiers. And so staff, the resolution that was put in your packets identifies the one that we are specifically recommending in this case. And that is that the industrial, commercial, or other economic development of such area will benefit the city, but such area lacks the housing needed to induce manufacturing, industrial, commercial, governmental, educational, entertainment, community development, healthcare, or nonprofit enterprises or undertakings to locate or remain in such area, and that private enterprise and investment are not reasonably expected without assistance to produce the construction or rehabilitation of decent, safe, and sanitary housing and supporting facilities that will meet the needs of low and moderate income persons and families in such area, and will induce other persons and families to live within such area and thereby create a desirable economic mix of residents. So as previously mentioned, the Alston Court property is planned for 96 units. That would be a mixture of 1, 2, and 3 bedrooms, and would also be a mixture of incomes, so different percentages of the area median income. The other project at B Street would be for 53 units, so a smaller development than Alston Court, and it would also be a mixture of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units. So staff does note that the recent residential development projects that we've seen in the city have been for market rate, primarily single-family, detached, and townhouse developments, although we have had a market rate apartment development at Town Center Drive, or proposal at Town Center Drive. But the current housing market is not providing workforce housing that's affordable to those of low to moderate incomes. And that is why staff would recommend that revitalization areas be designated. The regional housing study did find that 53% of Waynesboro's households are low income, and of the overall region's low income households, over half are cost burdened. So these developments would make a small dent in that overall workforce housing shortage among those that are low to moderate income. So in your packets are 2 separate resolutions that essentially lay out that definition as provided in state code to designate these separate properties as revitalization areas. And those resolutions, if approved, would be utilized in their applications to the state and kind of bolstering their applications and raise their point system in hopes that they could compete. And I'm happy to answer any questions if you have them.
What would the rate range be on these apartments? The cost per month?
So we do have both applicants here that can speak. I know that with the Alston Court project, they do plan to have a mix of incomes. So at the area median income, it would be those individuals that are making 30, 50 to 80% of that area median income, but they could speak more specifically on what those prices might look like in our area. And we do have concepts of the developments. I just kind of hesitancy. These will likely change, so they're not. We haven't obviously received any kind of full site plan, but we do have concept plans that kind of lay out those units and parking. And we have been in discussions with both of the developers, working through ordinance requirements and others. So this shows the buildings for the Alston Court property. But again, I will point out that it could change. And then also this is one concept we've received related to the 53 units for the B Street property. But yes, both applicants are here and would probably be happy to share some information with you.
Yeah, I'd like to invite them forward if they would like to
Okay, thanks.
speak.
I guess the first one on the agenda is for the 1030 Alston Court, if they'd
Okay.
like to go first.
Hi, good evening. My name is Kathleen Kramer. I'm with Enterprise Community Development, and Ned Howe is with us as well. So we are proposing 96 units. They'll be financed through, 48 will be financed through the 9% low-income housing tax credit, and the other 48 will be financed through the 4% low-income housing tax credit. Essentially, they would be one property, though, that would share a standalone clubhouse. Right now, our income mix is about 17%, 30% area median income, a third maybe at 80%, and then, 17% at 30% AMI, 27% at 50%, 29% at 60%, and 27% at 80%. And our unit breakdown would be about 20% one bedroom, 45% two bedroom, and then 38% three bedroom. And so in terms of rents, what that looks like is about $800, in terms of gross rents, it would be about $800 to $1,500 a month. We are also expecting that those 30% units would be would have dedicated project-based vouchers that would be attributed to those units as well. So that would be the income ranges between $800 to $1,500 per month per unit.
You say between 800?
Yes, yes.
And those 30% units are also designated as disabled units with this development as well. So that super low incomes are reserved specifically for disabled residents, and we're in partnership. You can talk about that as well.
Sure, yeah, we have a memorandum of understanding with Valley Community Services Board to provide referrals and services for those dedicated disabled units.
And how many units again was that would be designated for?
That would be
Just-
8.
8 units?
Yeah.
Okay.
And they would be also built to accessibility standards as well. Additionally, our entire development would be zero energy ready home. Certified meaning would be green building, all electric, in order to ensure lower utility costs for our residents.
Does anyone have any questions for the developer? No? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So, come forward. Thank you, Greg.
Yep.
Just introduce yourself if you don't.
Hi, Greg Mustrick, Woda Cooper Companies. And
I'm Bruce Watts, Senior Vice President and Chief Diversity Officer, Water Cooper Companies.
would it be okay if I give a quick background on our company?
Sure.
All right. Woda Cooper Companies, we're an integrated company with design, development, construction, and property management. We own and operate around 16,000 units and over 330 properties throughout 17 states. We have 11 properties in Virginia. We're really a affordable housing developer. That's 99% of what we do. And you know, we've developed single-family subdivisions, 3 4-story apartment buildings, senior living communities, adaptive reuses of old schools and warehouses, and many more. We also own all of our properties. We've been around for over 30 years now. So when we're coming into the community, we want to be a part of the community and build something that will be of high quality, that's going to last for a really long time. We'll develop our properties using the tax credit program. There's a 15-year compliance period with the state regarding that program. At the end of the 15 years, we like to go back in and renovate our properties to bring them up to current standards. So that's just a quick background of our company, but we are looking to apply for tax credits in the upcoming round on March 14th. We are proposing a site. The site plan that is up here now is one that the seller had developed, and we've been working with a civil engineer in our architecture firm. And as I came in from Columbus, Ohio today and received a new site plan. So it'll change, but what we're proposing now are 2 buildings, and we will have the first building will be a walk-up split, 2 3-story split with 20 units, and the second building will be a walk-up with an elevator, and that'll be a 3-4 split with 33 units. And each building will have 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units. The property and the units will meet universal design requirements. We'll have 15% of the units will be ADA accessible. And let's see here. We'll have a community room. Property management will be on site. We'll also have a maintenance staff on site too. We'll have, let's see, bike racks, playground. It'll also be energy efficient. We'll probably be LEED certified and Energy Star certified for this development. And yeah, I think that's a quick background. And I know you were talking about rents earlier, asking about them, and they're probably going to be similar to Enterprise and what they're proposing. But, you know, 1-bedroom units the gross rents will range from around $474 to $1,147. 2 bedrooms will range from $569 to $1,342, and 3 bedrooms will range from $657 to $1,479. We're working on getting project-based vouchers for around 8 of the units. Again, we'll be partnering with Valley Community Services Board to provide services and receive referrals for those units.
Are there any questions?
No, the developer.
Okay, I do have just a quick question, and maybe I should have addressed it to the first developer as well. What type of inspection process do you go through with projects such as this and developments like this? So what would that, could you just give me a brief overview of what that would look like?
Yeah, so, there's several bodies that really inspect the property. Obviously, we're going to have on-site property management, and the way our company works, we have an on-site property manager, then we have a district manager and regional manager who all conduct inspections of these properties. And then we also have the federal oversight with Virginia Housing, who would possibly do inspections. And then we have our investors in the project, who would be buying the tax credit, and they would come out and also inspect the properties. Like I mentioned earlier, we want to have this, partnership with the community. If you guys are having issues, or if you're noticing something that, we should be aware of, you'll have my cell phone number, you can call me. I report directly to both owners of our company, so we can get things addressed immediately. So, but that's kind of the basic. We have it internally, and then we have the investors who are also inspecting them too.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay, moving on, we will consider both designations separately, but I have been requested to table this motion until a future meeting. And I do have a question of Melissa. If we do table that, do we need to table them separately or as one?
You can, the motion can be tabled together if that's the desire of
Okay.
the body.
All right. Okay. So moving forward, do we have a motion to adopt, or motion to adopt the resolution, or a motion to table?
Madam Mayor, we've talked, we're limited by how much we can meet and discuss things. But I know 2 by 2, there was some discussions today with some of the colleagues that some questions arose, other questions, and I think there's a few questions that we need to clear up before we move forward. Our next meeting is March 11th, which still gives both developers time to meet the deadline. So I would like to make a motion to table this until our next city council meeting.
Okay. I have one motion to table. I will require a second to that. Okay, that's been seconded. So we will vote. Do I have a,
Madam Mayor, just
Yes.
for discussion purposes, I think for Leslie's benefit, the only remaining question, which I think I mentioned in, when I first learned of the development potential, and certainly am interested, very interested in it. One of the comments that I had sort of raised, and I'd like some clarification on, is, and again, not in the spirit of certainly placing the lack of infrastructure burden on the developers, but I would like a conversation to be had about the supporting infrastructure for folks that would benefit from enhanced transit services, walkability. Neither of these neighborhoods support that. Interparcel connections. Have we had interparcel connections with the adjacent property over by the Sheets leading up to Rosser? How do folks plan to navigate? Obviously, if the intent here obviously is for affordable, accessible housing, well, we should plan for and have a understanding of the city's participation in overcoming some of those barriers long-term, and what the costs might be associated with that, and the strategy of how to overcome those. Again, not to place that burden on developer, but I think eyes wide open, it's a substantial population that we would be placing in an areas of the city that don't have that kind of supporting infrastructure at present.
thank you for that. Okay.
I'd like to be absolutely clear that we look for, we're excited about the idea of having affordable housing in Waynesboro, and we invite developers to come and bring their ideas here, but we just want to make sure we take the time to do it right for the developers as well as for the current citizens of Waynesboro, because that's our interest, is to look out for the citizens of Waynesboro.
Okay, so I've been presented with a motion to table and a second, and so I will need to, if there's no further discussion, I would like to ask for a motion. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so we are going to table that until the March 11th meeting. Okay, moving on to item 9, that's boards and commissions, and I'm going to turn it over to our city manager, Mr. Hamp.
Okie dokie. So I'd like simply this evening to draw council's attention to a series of vacancies that we have. Of course, the clerk and I, Ms. Bordeaux, will be supporting recruitment and the activity needed to generate, hopefully generate some interest in some of these vacancies, but we've accumulated quite a number. So let me very briefly identify those for you. So we have one vacancy on the CAPSAW board. That's the agency. It's a regional agency that evaluates community needs, mostly human service needs, and then works to prioritize opportunities and programs to address those human service needs, and then allocates community development block grant funds and matching local funds to various agencies that deliver service. We have 2 vacancies on Valley Community Services Board. We have 2 vacancies on the Cultural Commission. We have 2 vacancies on the Regional Youth Commission, 3 vacancies on the Historical Commission, and 1 vacancy on the Redevelopment and Housing Authority Board. So again, Ms. Bortle and I will continue to promote these vacancies, but I wanted to draw particular focus on them on the part of council. Then we have a number of upcoming vacancies that most of these occur as terms expire this summer. We'll have a vacancy on the Library Board of Trustees, 2 vacancies coming on the Planning Commission, 1 vacancy on the Board of Building Code Appeals, a vacancy on the Parks and Recreation Commission, a vacancy on the Central Shenandoah Planning District Commission, and a vacancy on the Economic Development Authority Board. So we're happy to continue to work on that, and then please look for those items on an agenda, and also please recruit interested citizens to those opportunities. Thank you.
Can we get a current list of what you just said?
Yep. Yes, sir.
Mike, maybe just as a question related to that, Madam Mayor, is, I think maybe just for the broader conversation, obviously, much like vacancies across the country relative to civic, whether they're civic-minded or even just general positions in any organization, I mean, that's a pretty impressive vacancy list that you've just run down at present. Some time ago, I had inquired about each of the commissions, or nearly all the commissions, I understand them, in the budget cycle. I don't think we necessarily do a call for ideas or solicit ideas, but each of these commissions have important and appreciated work, and yet short of just meeting, to have a deliverable associated with it requires some level of investment from council into furthering their efforts, because otherwise they're just meeting. And so I would offer that, one, having a discussion about, I remember that with the Historic Commission as an example. They, bless their hearts, they met all the time, and gratefully we were able to identify some funding to do a couple little projects. We did the staircase over, and then and then some fencing at one of the local city-maintained cemeteries and the like, and some inventory work, all at the request and over a period of 2 or 3 years. I would be interested to understand what are the work plans of each of the commissions, what are the deliverables for each year, what are their expectations, and how can we be supportive of that? Because otherwise, folks might just show up to meetings, feel like they sit around at meetings all the time, never really accomplish anything, never having an investment made back into their work, and probably just stop participating. That'd be one. Two, the Planning Commission is the only commission, actually, maybe, might be the, I think there might be one other organization, but the Planning Commission is the only commission that receives a nominal compensation annually, or monthly. Is that, I guess, if, for this, maybe just reflect, just to say it out here, and for my colleagues and I to kind of reflect on is, do we want to provide some nominal compensation for folks' time? I mean, if it's important work, everybody's time is worth something. And so maybe a combination of strategizing, what's the work effort? Are we committing staff resources to participating in these commissions? What's the work product? Are we prioritizing it? Do we invest in it? And then do we show our appreciation to those that show up to volunteer? Whether it's 25 or $50 or something like that.
Thank you, Terry.
Point of order, the Virginia Code sets forth the ability for a public body to provide remuneration on various boards. So some, it's just the expenses. Most of them are just the expenses, like, if they have
Right.
expenses located. So it's really difficult to have, across-the-board policy of providing some type of appreciation. So you'd have to be, mindful of the Virginia Code.
And I forget what the Planning Commission is. I think it's $300 a year or something like that.
I think it's $50
Yeah, so,
And that's one of the ones that is allowed for additional and special compensation.
so just to kind of throw that out there again, it's, civic stuff is hard to get people engaged and.
So to Terry's point, equally important to that is that I believe that council needs to take an active role in those selections to the various councils. And so I've spoke to Mike. He has some ideas on how we can approach future selections to these various councils. And I think that'll go a long way once we put folks on these councils.
Thank you.
I guess let me jump on too. To the first point that you made about, the participation of some of the boards and such, and I think we've discussed it before. I'd like to discuss further. We have some boards that never meet. Maybe it might be a time to kind of look and check and see, what's really needed and what's not. So it might be time to kind of look at that. Maybe I won't say an overhaul, but let's look and see what we can do to, number one, get more people involved and get them, helping out. But also if some of them are just not participating, I guess, or have made a significant impact, then maybe we need to look at the importance of some of these boards that we may not need.
Bruce and I did a little bit of a cleanup a few years back with some stuff, and then that were kind of legacy sort of commissions and like. And I mean, I think the list that we have now is, it's one of those things of if someone asks you about it, can you explain what the function and purpose is? And I would feel comfortable in a position that I could explain the function and purpose. Now, whether or not we as a body and as a community reciprocate in their willingness to serve by acknowledging their work and participating financially in maybe some of their efforts. Again, some of these projects that we've done over there were not very incredibly expensive. I think we did some pamphlets for like $1,000 or like, but it does show that their meetings mean something to our community, and there's value in the time that they've committed to it. So
Yeah, I've made it a point in my year on council to make my rounds, try to hit every board and commission, at least once. I don't go every month, but
Yeah.
just the other night, I was at the historical commission, and, I just kind of put it out to them, what can we do to help you do more, to be a more impact? We talked about the Virginia 250 program with the Parks and Rec Director, Mr. Jones, 2 or 3 months ago. And I was like, that's part of Virginia history. Historical Commission seems like they relate. What can you do to help us with that and different projects such as the Plum House and a few other things. So, you know, I want to encourage them all to get more involved rather than just adding a spot on your resume. Let's do something for the city of Waynesboro.
Well, it's a, you know, not to pile on, but I mean, it's an excellent example. That was one of the first things I did was the Historic Commission when I first joined, and I was like, so what do you show up every month? God bless you for showing up every month, you know, and they said, well, we make this request every year, and you know, Mike does a good job of prioritizing, but yeah, so you know, we did the retaining wall and the sidewalks, the staircase over at the Plum House. We did some fencing over by the cemetery, over by the Red Brick House, and some other projects. So yeah, I mean, I think it's just important and for people to feel like their efforts are appreciated and invested in. So yeah, thank you.
Anybody else? So I'd like to encourage folks that don't have, you know, that like to have a little bit more in their life and involved in Waynesboro to reach out to one of the council members and share their interest in participating in one of these boards or commissions. Okay. Thank you, Mike. All right, item 10 is communication, correspondence, and calendar, and that'll be Mr. Hampton again.
Yes, ma'am. I have 3 items to draw councils or to inform council about. All 3 are activities in the downtown area. Several involve road closures and several involve alcohol. The code allows the city manager to close the streets, but when we are talking about the downtown area, it's been my practice to inform council of when I intend to do that. The first event is scheduled for April 27th. This is the Riverfest event, and this is a closure of West Main Street from Race Avenue to East Avenue. No alcohol involved in this event, and the closure will be from about 10 o'clock until 5 o'clock. Excuse me, the closure will be from 8 until 6 approximately, and the event itself is from 10 to 5. Event number 2 that I want to make the council aware of is Tour of the Town. This is a second year in which this event has occurred. There are no street closures involved in this event. This is May 29th from 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. This is a DORA event, which is alcohol permit for the downtown area. And this will coincide with a Rock the Block concert under the Wayne Theater programming. And then finally, again, the second year for this event is Hiker Fest, scheduled for June 7th. Closure of North Wayne Avenue from Main Street to Broad from 9 to 9. The event itself is from 11 to 8. This also is a DORA event, and I attended this event for a few minutes last year. It seemed to be well attended and well organized, and drew a new energy related to the hikers to the downtown area. So I plan to approve those road closure requests and wanted to make the council aware of those.
Okay, thank you so much.
That's all I have this evening.
Okay. Item 11 is citizens' comment period. Do we have anyone signed up to speak?
So I think the only individuals signed up to speak were representatives of, or the applicants for the revitalization designation.
Okay.
So I don't think we have anybody else signed up to
Okay.
speak.
Well, that brings us to item 12. Mr. Allen, would you like to make a motion to adjourn? Thank you, Mr. Allen, and is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Short, I believe. All in favor, say aye. Aye. We are adjourned.